Alright, so at the end of the last video, I told you to create a string variable named h and give it the value of hello. And then just pop it in here just like you would the other stuff. And I went ahead and did that. If you didn't do it, that's alright, but this is how you would do it. Is create the string variable h, give it the value hello, and remember a string has to be surrounded by quotation marks. Alright, and then I pulled out the hello from down here, put in the appropriate spaces where needed. And if you need a space like here, all right, between hello and the GC1, you actually have to do two quotation marks and put a space in there. Okay, and when we run it, it should prompt me to save it, maybe, no. Anyways, it should come up and it should look exactly the same. All right, so that's a little bit how you use variables. And I also said we're going to get into using something called an integer, and that's just another variable type. And if you look up Java variable types, you'll find out that that's one of them. And the way we do that is we say int, we give it a name, whatever you want to call it, and for the purposes of this one, I'm just going to call it x, and we set it equal to whatever we want it to be. And we don't use quotation marks on this because it's not a string. So I'm just going to give it the value of 10 to start, and don't forget to finish with a semicolon. So now if I want to use that down here in my code, of course, I'll go ahead and copy one of these, so Control C, and then I'm going to go Control V twice, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a space so that after the hello Joseph down here, it's going to give me another line feed, and then it's going to print out the 10 down here. So to put an empty space, you just do an empty print line, and then on this one, I'm just going to put the value of x. All right, so if I print this, it should print out the same stuff as before and then give me the value 10 under that, and it does. All right, so we can use this in a bunch of ways. One of them is if I wanted to go in here and say, for example, that Cherish, Selena, and Joseph, and basically give you all their ages, you could probably imagine, because you've already been messing with this a little bit, I would use the variable Cherish, or GC1, and then I would add it to the string variable is with a space on each side. And then, of course, I would create a couple more variables for their ages. And then I'd use the variable for their age here. And then at the end, I would do a space, years old. And of course, it's a string, so it's got to be surrounded by quotation marks. So let me go ahead and do that with the first one here. All right, so I made some changes. I took out the stuff under here with this value here, 10. I added the variables age 1, age 2, and age 3 to correspond with each of their ages, Cherish, then Selena, then Joseph. And I've only did the first one here, and basically it's going to read like this. It's going to be GC1 or Cherish is, and then it's going to use age 1, 15, and then it's going to give you a little space, years old. Now that's the only one I changed, so the other one should read the same, and unfortunately it's not going to look that good right now. Well, let me go ahead and put a print line in here, because that's what I'm going to want to do with the rest of them anyway. So if I change that to print line, of course, Selena's going to get moved down to the second line, and Joseph will be on the third line. So let me go ahead and run this. And you see here, Cherish is 15 years old. So if you want, go ahead and pause the video and see if you can make the next two lines print out Selena is 14 years old and Joseph is 16 years old. All right, so you should have come up with something like this. And I went ahead and left everything as is. I mean, I could have put a GC3 up here and added Joseph up here. But since I had him as a standalone string down here, I went ahead and left it that way. So this is the way I would change that, is Joseph is, and just use the age variable 3, and then years old. So now if I run this, oh, and the other thing that we want to do here is, if you notice, the string H is no longer being used. So if you're not going to use something in your code, get rid of it. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that, and then go ahead and run this. All right, so we save it, we run it, and here we are. Cherish is 15 years old, Selena is 14 years old, and Joseph is 16 years old. All right, and that's how you work with numbers and strings. Now, the one thing that you have to watch, and I think I told you this, if you have two numbers, and I say I did something like their combined age down here. So let me go ahead and run a couple of other print lines down here for you. All right, so I entered 3 more lines, technically 4, because I put a little space between them. And I put their combined age is. Now, I like to do it like math. And when you're trying to focus on something, like I'm trying to focus on adding these 3 numbers here, I surround them with parentheses. Now, you don't have to, but on occasion, you may run into issues if you don't. So I haven't run this yet to see if we're going to run into issues, but if you ever are doing code and you do something like this second one here, and it doesn't do what you want to, try surrounding them with parentheses, and it should focus on that and add or divide or do whatever math operation that you want to do, and focus just on those numbers between the parentheses. All right, and then down here what I did was I took age 1, added it to an empty string. Anytime you put 2 quotation marks together and you don't have a space or anything in there, it's called an empty string. And by doing this, it should take the first age, 15, and then put the 14 right behind it. So it'll be 15, 14, and then of course did it again, and then it should be 16. All right, so let's go ahead and run this and see what it gives us. All right, so as you can see, the combined age, and if you add them all together, it should come up to 45. But by not putting them in parentheses, you see it basically did the same thing as down here, and it put one after the other after the other. And that's because you are combining them with a string. All right, and that is one of the problems. Now, if you do it before the string, a lot of times you won't have that issue. It'll actually add them before it does anything. So, but like I say, those are little problems that you may run into when you're doing your code. All right, and these are ways to fix them. All right, so we'll go ahead and let off right here. In the next video, we'll actually go into creating an actual problem-solving program that will let us know whether a number is greater than, less than, or equal to the second number. All right, so once again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.